It's hard to imagine in the modern day, but Doom was a series in crisis at the start of the 2010s. The release of Doom 3 in 2004 divided the Doom fanbase. Its slower, horror-focused tone took the game away from its classic roots, yet it was a technical showpiece and a critical darling, selling over 3.5 million copies and becoming the most successful game id Software had put out up to that point. Yet the fan reception was a lot more divided. Some loved this new take on the Doom franchise, while others decried it. After the release of that game's expansion, Resurrection of Evil, id Software shifted their focus to their next major title, Rage, a game that they hoped would bring the same level of success that Doom and Quake had achieved over the years. With Rage very much the focus, early development began on Doom 4 in mid-2007, the game's official announcement being made on May 7, 2008 by id Software themselves. The team at id Software was split into two, the main team focused on Rage while the other, smaller team developed Doom 4 separately. After this announcement, not much was said about Doom 4 in public, to the point where fans started to get frustrated. The former president of id Software, Todd Hollinshead, even apologised at QuakeCon 2009's press conference and promised information about the game would be released at the following year's event. Spoilers, it was not. For the longest time, Doom 4 remained out of sight. The release of Rage came and went in 2011, and the studio seemingly wasn't keen on talking about the dormant franchise. Yet rumours swirled in the back half of 2010 and early 2011 that there were issues at id Software. Then later in 2011, Jason Schreier, then of Kotaku, published an explosive article outlining the troubled development and issues that Doom 4 had been facing. The article, citing former members of the Doom 4 development team, recapped a very troubled development, frustration from Bethesda and ZeniMax Media, as well as the simple message that Doom 4 simply had not come together in the way that the team wanted it to. According to Kevin Cloud, the former project creative director at id Software, there was concern that the project had become something that wasn't capturing what we felt like was Doom, and what fans wanted from it. What had been created was competent, but it wasn't Doom. The game that was Doom 4, which had been worked on since 2007, was unceremoniously scrapped, and id Software being forced to focus solely on Doom by ZeniMax and Bethesda, who had up until that point remained completely hands-off with the studio. Before many gamers even got to see Doom 4 for the first time, it was dead in the ground and already a relic of the past. Yet the game that was Doom 4 still intrigues me to this day. It's a game that's looked back on with speculation and hostility from Doom fans, many of whom lament how such an outing could easily have destroyed the entire franchise. I wanted to look back at what we know about Doom 4, the leaks, the portfolio, the footage. I want to deep dive into that and take a look at what Doom could have been and how the game even got to that state in the first place. This information has been gathered from various sources, including interviews with former id Software staff members, portfolio releases, articles from across the years, as well as general leaks. Originally envisioned as a reworking of Doom 2, the game was intended to reimagine the Doom experience for modern gaming. Much like Doom 3 took the original Doom setting and themes, then changed a lot of the core experience, Doom 4 was intended to do the same for Doom 2, using a slightly modified version of the id Tech 5 engine as its base. The idea was to offer a different perspective on Hell's invasion of Earth. The project was more story-focused, cinematic in nature. It drew heavy inspiration from the Call of Duty games, which had exploded in popularity in the back half of the 2000s. Those games play nothing like classic Doom, but instead see gamers fighting through linear levels which are peppered with in-game cutscenes and cinematics. Unlike previous Doom games, where the main character was alone for large sections of the game, here the player would be surrounded by a cast of characters who would interact and push the story forward. You would be part of a larger resistance cell looking to push back and fight against the demon onslaught. Levels would be linear and highly focused to deliver cinematic experiences. A lot of the levels built were heavily focused on destroyed cityscapes, with huge inspiration drawn from New York locales with focus on realism. Various leaks of concept art show places such as libraries, sewers, warehouses, factories, and apartment buildings. These all had concepts designed and were partially completed in some cases. Players would travel through an increasingly corrupt city, fighting to the heart of the Hell invasion. This corruption concept can be seen in concept art, where corrupted buildings and vehicles show a world being consumed by Hell itself. A number of weapons would be available for the player to use during the single-player campaign, with a combat knife, shotguns, assault rifles, SMGs, and even a chainsaw available for the player. It's not known if series staples like the plasma rifle or the BFG 9000 would have made their returns. Sync Melee was also set to be a big part of the combat experience, a mechanic that would be repurposed into glory kills in the 2016 release of Doom, although it was much slower in its implementation in Doom 4. According to one of the project creative directors, Hugo Martin, the game wouldn't feel like the original Doom, which had one guy involved in big things. It would be more about the big things. This would be a realistic depiction of what an invasion from hell would look like. It was also not set to feature the Doomslayer as a main character, but it did feature an early soundtrack from Mick Gordon. But as development pushed forward, the sentiment that something wasn't right grew as more time was invested into the project. Its software producer Marty Stratton confirmed in interviews that those working on the game were referring to it as Call of Doom. Such was the heavy lean towards Call of Duty as a franchise and its tropes. One anonymous source told Kotaku, "There were jokes like, 'Oh, it's Call of Doom.' They referenced it because of the amount it was scripted. There were a lot of scripted set pieces. There was kind of a recognition that in order to be a big shooter these days, you have to have some kind of big bombastic movie experience that people get pulled through." The game apparently featured vehicle sections, turret sections, and obligatory bland shooting sections that didn't do much for the player but would fill the screen with enemies to shoot at. Things that Doom simply wasn't known for. Doom 4 initially was targeting a release on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, although John Carmack himself did suggest the game could appear on the upcoming PS4. Single player would target 30 frames a second, allowing for more enemies on screen at one time. The multiplayer segment of the game, which was planned from the start, was targeting 60 frames a second. When Rage released in 2011 to middling reviews and sales, the management team at id Software shifted their focus to Doom. When they paid attention to the game that was being developed, they did not like what they saw. Reportedly during a roundtable to try and salvage the new direction for Doom post-Doom 4, John Carmack told everyone in the room that Doom means two things: demons and shotguns. This almost seems like it was a rallying cry to try and get the game back where it should have been. Doom 4 that existed in 2011 was described as a black hole of mediocrity, with studio leadership regretting not giving the project more direct focus. ZeniMax came down hard on the studio in early 2012, cancelling early plans for Rage 2 and forcing id Software to focus on one game, Doom 4. They reportedly told the leads at id, Doom 4 can and should be as big as Skyrim as far as sales and cultural impact were concerned. In the ensuing power struggles and mergers within id Software, John Carmack, one of the original founders of id Software, departed the company while many other names departed for pastures new. Eventually that original Doom 4 would leak online thanks to various videos, art concepts and even some storyboards. A trailer even showed up online showcasing a vertical slice of the game, and fans were far from impressed. Tim Willits described the overall Doom 4 experience to IGN in 2015, stating, "It wasn't like the art was bad or the programming was bad. Every game has a soul. Every game has a spirit. When you played Rage, you got that spirit. And Doom did not have that spirit. It did not have a soul. It didn't have a personality. It had a bit of schizophrenia, a little bit of an identity crisis. It didn't have the passion and soul of what an id game is. Everyone knows the feeling of Doom, but it's very hard to articulate." So yeah, Doom 4 as it was at the end of 2011 was dead. The only things that would be carried forward were the parts deemed worthy of being salvaged. The biggest issue for Doom 4 was always going to be fan reception. Doom 3 had already split opinions when it released, and Doom 4 was seemingly only going to further cause division. From the small amount of footage fans have seen, it's clear that Doom 4 was chasing the Call of Duty trend. Doom had long been a franchise that established trends and was considered a bar for quality, but here Doom 4 would be chasing trends and not particularly well either. Perhaps worse than that, it was betraying all that Doom had been before. Doom is a running, gunning shooter that revels in being chaotic and brutal. With Doom 4, the focus on realism and shifting the franchise to a more cover-based shooter simply wasn't a good fit. Doom had never invested heavily in story. Even Doom 3 only paid lip service to the ongoing story it was trying to tell. It understood that most Doom fans were there for the gameplay loop, not for the cinematics. Doubling down on those and creating a cast of characters that would only serve to get between the gamer and gameplay was somewhat short-sighted. Had the game released, I imagine many fans would have hated it. It may have brought new fans into the franchise, but I personally find it hard to believe that Call of Duty fans, catered to on an annual basis by Activision, were going to down tools and jump to a pale imitation. I personally hated the trailer when I saw it. I had enjoyed Call of Duty 4 when it touched down in 2007, but as its influence spread and infected other games, many of whom failed to catch that same success, I just kinda grew tired of that type of shooter. And I will be honest, had Doom slipped into that Call of Duty clone space that id Software seemed determined to cram it into, the franchise probably would be dead now. Doom is a power fantasy game, one that thrives on adrenaline and atmosphere. From everything Doom 4 was going to be, it would have had neither of those. And this isn't me saying it couldn't have been a good game. The people who worked on Doom 4 were hugely competent, and I'm sure that with more time and more polish, the game could have been a solid Call of Duty clone. But it wouldn't have been Doom. It wouldn't have been the franchise that I grew up loving and longed to see return. Maybe as a spin-off title it could have worked in some capacity, but definitely not as a main iteration. Doom 2016 for me was the perfect game at the perfect time, a game that was respectful of what Doom was in the past while also stepping in an exciting new direction. Do I love the new Doom games? Not so much, they aren't really my cup of tea, but they are respectful of the franchise, way more than whatever Doom 4 was trying to do. And I'll take that over a soulless entry that almost certainly would have killed id Software and relegated Doom to the same dusty shelves as the likes of Duke Nukem, Blood, Unreal, Hexen, Heretic, and so many more franchises that didn't adapt. Doom 4 is an interesting part of Doom's history, a game that almost was but never became, a spectre that hangs over the modern Doom releases as a reminder of how off-path the franchise went in its darkest hour. I know some people wish the game would be released in some form to give an idea of what could have been. To me, it's a curiosity but nothing more. Doom 4 was a mistake, but one that was corrected before it could do any real damage. It's fascinating and a curiosity that will never not intrigue, but it's also showcased that chasing trends in the video game industry only leads to bad decisions and tunnel vision. Doom is eternal, but I'm pretty sure had Doom 4 released, Doom would also be 6 feet under right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, then please check out my channel memberships or Patreon for access to exclusive videos and the ability to choose retro roulette games.